Well, first and foremost, it was pretty empty rhetoric. There weren't a whole lot of new ideas. There wasn't, quite frankly, even a plan, a path forward. What we heard were a lot of attacks on the last president, a lot of partisan bashing and trying to instigate new political battles. We heard about the American surrender in Ukraine. We heard a whole lot about immigration, and yet very little when it came to the pocketbook issues. And, what Trump said about America's farmers just having to grit and bear it as he increases the cost of inputs of goods by over 25% was just remarkable. I mean, I don't think in my lifetime and in modern American history, we've had a president who had the audacity, quite frankly, the shamelessness to stand before Congress and the American people and say, I don't have a plan. I have a whole lot of shiny, superficial objects that I'm going to wave here in front of you without a strategy, without so much as even an explanation of how these are connected. It was, quite frankly, a disastrous speech for our democracy. And I think it will ultimately lead to the implosion of Trump's presidency because he continues to bluster and bulldoze, which ultimately are going to send some of the pillars of our economy tumbling down on top of him and Elon Musk.
My fellow Americans, get ready for an incredible future because the golden age of America has only just begun. It will be like nothing that has ever been seen before. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
I thought it was great. I thought, and the after action report polling seems to show that the American people also thought it was pretty great. I mean, from everything from his choice of tie, which was like a deep purple, showing a unity message, he went out there, and if you were not a right wing, I don't know what the term means anymore, but not a MAGA loyalist, not a hardcore Republican, but say you were a center of the road person who voted for that common sense policy. Well, that's what Donald Trump came and talked about. Things like the two genders or the women in the men's sports. That was a big thing. These kind of common sense things that when he brought out some of the wasteful expenditures that Doge had found. I mean, these things, they're all a drop in the bucket until they all add up and they're not. So I think a lot of it was communicating that message. And I think one thing that was lost maybe was that we usually give presidents a 100-day grace period, the first 100 days. We've only been through 40, and it feels like it's been much longer. One thing that came in his favor was Zelensky. Zelensky sending that apology tweet or whatever you want to call it, effectively saying, "Hey, let's just get back to the table. Let's sign the mineral deal." Well, that was what was causing more global instability than any sort of domestic kerfuffle, especially with the U.S.-Canada border. I mean, that's trade domestically, but the international community, stability of prices of aluminum or grain, that's something that at the end of the war in Ukraine can bring, as well as financial investment and potentially drawing down the hostilities and this and that. When he called out the European countries in general about buying more oil from Russia than they gave in aid, I mean, that's stuff that plays to, I think, anybody common sense people. Like, hey, that doesn't make any sense. Even if you paid the Americans double for the oil and paid the Russians nothing, you'd be doing more than giving the 20 billion to the Russians. I think a lot of that messaging went over well, and he was a little bit defiant, a little bit smug in some respects towards the Democrats. He obviously enjoyed the fact that they thought he would never be there. Seeing anybody walk out isn't good for coalition. We have one of the tightest margins in the House in history, if not the tightest margin. I think we have a bigger margin in the Senate for the first time. It's a very unusual situation. So does it help? No, but I would also caution to say that everybody who walked out or staged a protest were people who were already never going to come over to work with us. So there wasn't as though some middle of the road centrist went and did it. That maybe would have been more demoralizing. Honestly, the protests were understandable. This is sort of what they do. At least they didn't glue themselves to the floor.